Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of you, the people you work with, and the people you do life with. At the time of this recording, I'm offering all of you, yes, my lovely listeners, a free 15-minute communication coaching call. You come with some kind of communication problem, and I give you a solution. My calendar link is in the show notes, so check that out. The interview today is with Herb Cogliano. Herb is a specialist in scaling businesses. He's done it himself, and he now teaches other business owners how to do it. I love that. And one of the reasons is because, hey, I own a business, and I know a lot of you own businesses, or you're leading companies, or you're doing something within the company that impacts the growth and the scalability of your organizations. This is relevant for all of you. It is relevant for me. And that's why I love this interview. Skot he owns his own advisory practice. It's called Leveraging the Scaling Up Performance Platform that we talk about in here. So we talk about that in the interview and the platform he uses to coach his clients. He helps and hopes to help them achieve more freedom by helping them create industry-leading strategies, a culture of accountability, flawless execution, along with healthy cash flow for the organizations. It creates personal freedom and this idea that, hey, I started this thing for a reason. I want to build this thing and scale this thing for a reason. And when that purpose aligns with what you're doing, all the better for all of us. So without further ado, we are going to talk to Herb about scaling our companies. Here we go. What's up, Herb? How we doing, man?
Hey, Scott. Happy New Year. So great to hear about your new book launch, and also excited to be here with you and your listeners.
Well, I'm excited for my listeners to hear from you because we don't often talk about scaling businesses. And a lot of my listeners are people leaders, but a lot of them are also business owners and entrepreneurs and of the sorts, right? And so, and me, I'm an entrepreneur too, and I have my own business, and I would love to learn how to scale my stuff here, Herb. So
I love it.
let's talk about it. Let's talk about it a bit. But tell us about the model of like why you got into what you're doing, because you're affiliated with a certain group and a model that you teach and use to coach your clients. Why that one? And give us some background on that.
Yeah, Scott, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a family business, and as an entrepreneur, was always struggling with getting and breaking through to the next level of company growth. In the beginning, when you're a startup, how do I become a $1 million company? You're a $1 million company. How do I become a $5 million company? And then ultimately, how do I become a 10, 50, or 100 million and beyond? Each one of these stages has a different level of complexity and takes a different type of operating style in leadership to navigate through it. Did you know in the US, out of about 32 million companies, less than 0.5% ever scaled to 10 million or more a year in revenue? And 4% make it over 1 million a year in revenue. Many of them may be lifestyle companies. You like a small solopreneur. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's many that want more, but they don't know how to navigate that scaling up growth. I was introduced to a book in early 2003 by Verne Harnish, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. These were the habits of John D. Rockefeller, who scaled Standard Oil, which is now ExxonMobil. In the day, he was an incredible entrepreneur, and we researched his habits of business practice, and we put them in a methodology, and we used it in my privately held firm, and we were able to scale to be a multi-year Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company, not 1 year, several years, repeatable, well becoming a best places to work climate. What that told me is that we could do financially well and we could do good by the people we served at the same time. And that was something that I wanted to be part of as an entrepreneur and owner.
So you drank your own Kool-Aid, is what you're saying. So you
That
you
was,
lived it.
thank you. Yes, I've been practicing as a CEO Scaling Up Practitioner now for over 23 years. And I
Wow.
wouldn't start
Okay.
another company unless we embedded the scaling up methodology from the beginning, knowing what I know today.
So give me that initial stat. Half of 1% scale to what number? A million?
10,
10
only
million.
10 million or more. Less than
Goodness.
one half of 1% out of 32 million ever make it that large.
And
Only
then how many get
4%,
how many get over a million?
4%.
4%
Yes.
get over a million.
Yes.
That makes me feel a little bit better about myself, Herb. Thank you. So I'm just
Well,
like, because I sit there and I look around everybody else and I'm going, gosh, like, how do I get that? And
yeah,
I feel like, because I'm not quite there yet, Herb, yet. Yeah, as a solopreneur and building my business and what I'm doing. And I feel there's a lot of people out there like me that look around and go, what is wrong with me? Why can't I
yeah,
scale that? Why can't I get there? What is holding that individual back from getting past
yeah.
that million mark?
Um, we look at 4 decisions that need to be thoughtful and done correctly. In the area of people, what holds you back is typically the owner is the bottleneck. Skot, you created your consultancy because you loved something and wanted your freedom and independence to do it. So you were very good at leadership, or thought leadership or leadership type communication styles, and you have IP in your head that you're delivering to the world, and you personally get enjoyment while you do that. But to scale a company, you have to work on it more than you work in it. So then you end up saying, well, wait a minute, I don't want to give up working with my clients. I want to continue to do that. So how do you let go? And yet, how do you spend time developing a team around you that can scale it to 10 million versus you getting the enjoyment of doing all that work? The second part is strategy, go to market. You can love doing something. I was in the staffing industry, IT technology staffing for decades. I could do something well, but it was becoming commoditized. So even though I could deliver, was I unique? Because you and I know to have a competitive advantage and scale my company, I have to be valued, but I have to be distinctive. Otherwise, I get margin pressure, commoditization, and I won't grow. And it will be very tough to maintain. So, are you clear in a moving, evolving market? Are you clear that you have a go to market strategy that will allow you to be distinctive and valued? And a lot of people don't see it, they don't evolve with it, and they get stuck. The third one is execution. Your practice may be able to help, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 people at a time, and you do a great job and they're very happy. But executing at scale, could you do that for 1,000 people or 10,000 people at a time? And having the system, the playbook, the people in the execution accountability to deliver at scale, a lot of owners are not prepared for that and they stall. And then the final one is cash. Growth sucks cash. Do you have healthy bottom line and margins where you can take profitable growth and use it to fund the next stage growth of your company? Or do you have to beg, borrow, family or friends to do that, which can be expensive and risky? And that causes people to stall. So those are the four major areas that we have to help you navigate to get through. And what's interesting about this, as you can imagine, Scott, otherwise everybody would be doing it. You may begin with people being your biggest challenge, but a year later, it's cash. 6 months after that, it's execution. And the ball is always moving, and you need to be able to adapt and navigate to deal with that biggest gap. And that's what we teach people, how to diagnose it and then how to fix it.
So there's not necessarily one of the four you start with. It's going in and running audits and kind of doing some of that initial digging to understand which one you start with.
Yeah. So it's situational, and you do your diagnostic and begin with the lowest gap first.
Do you find it's different with companies trying to reach 1 million versus companies trying to reach 10?
Yeah, I find the ones trying to reach 1 million, it's normally go to market, it's normally strategy. Because think about it, if you can't get 1 million in revenue, you may not have the ideal strategy. So is your go-to-market strategy strong and compelling enough to attract at least $1 million worth of client acquisition? When you can prove that, it's probably repeatable. And now it's a question of getting the right people on the bus to help you scale and execute the next 5 million.
Okay. And then for the bigger companies, what do you find it being?
So that normally gets to people and it gets to execution. Because once my go-to-market strategy is right, then I need to get enough additional people on the bus and I need to get them aligned in executing at scale. So it's either people or execution. If you're very good at putting the right people on the bus, it's typically execution. And for the people that don't hire well, coach well, develop well, it's people first, then execution.
So where does cash come in? When, like, you didn't mention the cash part yet. I would think that would be, that would definitely, I mean, it's one of the four. It's obviously a big player in all
Right.
of this. When does that come into play?
Well, if you think about the beginning of most solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, you're bootstrapping. So you're kind of living within your means. You're not hiring 12 people day one. So I never see cash as the immediate panic. It's normally when you start picking up steam and you're like, do I hire 8 people or do I hire one? And some people go overboard and hire too many people too quick before the market allows them to pick up more adoption, more clients, and more cash flow. But I never see that because most of my clients are not startups. Most of my clients have hit the $1 million and they want to go from startup to scale up. And that's normally where I meet them.
Okay. So let's talk about cash flow for just a minute.
Hmm?
If how do we improve cash flow in our businesses or profitability? Like, is there a secret to that element of, of the business that you instill in clients? Is it a mindset thing? Is
Yeah.
it an operations thing? Like, how do we improve that inside our businesses?
We talk about something called the power of one. And there's 7 levers that help you grow cash flow, profitability, and the valuation of your company. The first lever is price. The second lever is cost of goods. The third lever is volume. The fourth lever is overhead. The fifth lever is AR days, inventory days, and then accounts payable days. And it's called the power of one, Skot, because if I can show a leadership team how to increase any or all of those 7 levers by just 1% or 1 day better in the right direction, you would not believe the exponential impact on your company. Now, what I've learned is when I do the analysis, not all levers are equal between companies. In your company, price may be the most impactful lever of the 7. In somebody else's manufacturing company, it may be cost of goods. So we look at the uniqueness of your business model and financial economics. We help you identify, if I can't change all 7, what would the top 1 or 2 be that if I did improve it would have the most dramatic impact? And we start there. We had a $1 million improvement in our bottom line the first year we learned about the power of one, in which lever truly, if we put effort, would make the biggest difference. We were all over the map. We're trying to touch all of them and not doing any of them really well. Who went to school for pricing? Do you know anybody who took a course on pricing? Most of us are not good at it. We started reading books, checking out, how do I become a pricing guru and what does that mean? And as we looked at the 7 levers and had people focus on KPIs in their job that impacted the 7 levers, everything started to go up. We just didn't know that. So it wasn't magic, it was awareness that changed.
It's not magic, it's awareness.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Man, if I would have had that quote for my book, you just came a little bit too late, Herb. Too late. That's for volume 2.
Second book,
That's for
volume 2. Volume 2.
That's for the new edition that I'll launch, one day. It's not magic, it's awareness. So I love that idea. And I love that we can, create, and I think it comes down to that focus element. And I will tell you from my standpoint, as I feel that a lot of entrepreneurs may be, a lot of people building businesses, a lot of more the visionaries that start businesses, they come into a place and they want to build something and they start building something and it gets really exciting. And then it gets kind of maybe mundane, or they start seeing other shiny objects of going, ooh, there's an opportunity there. And we could leverage that and we could grow that. And then we could try this. And then I don't know if this is kind of boring me now. I'm going to go over here and do this. Focus. And I will tell you that when I ran my previous design firm, when I was running that, focus was an issue for me. And it was a lack of self-awareness. I didn't understand that was part of my issue, but that was part of it. And I hear that with the cash flow piece. Like, we don't have to do everything. We can just focus on that one thing. Do you see that happening?
All the time. I was a victim of shiny objects, flavor of the day, whatever you want to call it. And I think a lot of visionary or strategist leaders are the same way. I truly enjoyed working on the business versus working in it. Some people are opposite, but a lot of visionaries do their best work as a strategist working on the company. And if you think about it, when you're small and you don't have a lot of bandwidth and you don't really have an established leadership team, you end up spending 80-90% of your week working in the business, dealing with clients, dealing with suppliers, dealing with project status update. And that's just the nature of the beast. But what you want to be doing over time is building up and developing the bandwidth of the leadership team, which will allow you as the owner to spend more time working on it than in it. And what do you do with that working on time? Well, if you're a growth-oriented company, what I wanted to be doing was doing more market-facing growth activities, major prospect acquisition, joint ventures, partnerships, rolling out new products, rolling out new locations. These were all working on activities that had eventually filtered in to be working in for other people. Now, when I was younger and the business didn't have the bandwidth, I never had the luxury to look at joint ventures, acquisitions, partnerships, go look at locations in Canada or Australia versus North America. Just never had the time. So the business didn't benefit from those growth opportunities. But over time, we ultimately were able to build that up. And that's where the business got the most value from me. And that's where I enjoyed spending my time in the business.
Do you feel there's a time to hand over the reins? If you're a visionary, if you are I love to be the strategist, I love to do those things, and I establish something, I start something and I'm growing it. Is there a time to hand over the reins to somebody who's more operational, who's more kind of in the weeds, I guess, as far as production is, production mentality and whatnot? And we don't need visionary strategy anymore. Like, okay, we kind of need that. But
Yeah.
once we establish the vision and the strategy, we have to operationalize it.
Yeah.
Is there a time to hand over the reins, or do we just bring in people that can supplement that?
Well, first of all, when can you afford to bring in these people is one thing, right? It's a question of your business financial viability. In the beginning, you may not be able to afford a chief operating officer or a general manager. So you're not only the CEO, but you're the COO and the CFO and the CIO all rolled into one. Over time, we have a tool called the Functional Accountability Tool, which is basically building the top tier level leadership that will support a scalable company. But we can't build it all at once. So maybe after myself being established as the head of the company, I want to bring in somebody. And by the way, I happen to be good at sales and marketing. I have another person pretty good at operations, but I don't have anybody handling finance. So I need to bring, if it's not a CFO full-time, some type of fractional person that can augment and give me bandwidth in the financial function of the company. And let's say I'm doing that for a year and then or two, and the company grows, and now I can fund a full-time controller CFO. But now I need a chief operating officer. And so now I'm saying to myself, I've done it, I'm not good at it, and I'm only doing it 20% of the week. So now I want to get a fractional, or I want to promote, or I want to hire somebody to come in and be my COO. Over time, I'll build that out and I'll narrow what I'm able to do, which is work on company activities, growth-facing market stuff. Now let's fast forward, Scott, a couple of years and say, I don't like doing that. I don't like working on joint ventures or acquisition or key prospects. I want to golf. That's a choice. where we have companies where the head of the company said, look, I love being an owner, a shareholder, but I don't want to work in the company at all. And then they go out and hire a president or a head of the company to take that, but they've put all the other pieces in place as well. They have a good culture, they have good functional leaders, and they decide to opt out. I wasn't that. I loved being the head of the company, but there's four major things to be a good head of a company. I think you have to either love it or find somebody else who does. Number one, you are always in charge of your company's strategy. I'll have people give me input, insight, but you own your go-to-market strategy as a CEO. Number two, culture. The strength of your company culture, your values, your purpose, your employee engagement, you own that as a CEO. And if your culture is crappy and you got high turnover and A players don't want to work for you, that's on you. And you got to fix that. Number three, capital allocation. Where the money you have as a company, you place the bets. Where am I going to put that money? R&D, go to market, operational efficiency, equipment, staff, you own that. And the fourth one is the overall talent assessment of your company. If I have 100 employees or 10, what percent of them are A players? And the CEO, one of their top KPI is the A player percentage rating of their entire company. You're willing to own those four things and work on developing and improving KPIs that go with them, you're going to be great in that job. If you don't like them, find somebody else to do it for you and stay an owner.
Nice.
Yep.
What about these assessments? We've talked about a couple times. You mentioned a few assessments
Yep.
throughout the interview.
Yep.
Are these things that anybody can go access at any
Yes.
time, or are they things that are conducted through you, like facilitated through you?
No, so on our website, Scott, anybody can go to aspiregrowthadvisors.com, and you're going to see simple links for the Scaling Up Readiness Assessment. If I'm a business owner and I want to know how ready is my company to scale today, take the simple assessment and it will give you results showing your current readiness. The second assessment is how ready am I as a leader to run a scaling up company? And you can take that assessment and it will give you a leadership readiness score to help you determine where you're at in that development. And for those that want a follow-up, I would review the results with you and give you some ideas and next steps on developments in either of those through the scaling up methods if you wanted. I've been fortunate that I've had many other people help me in my entrepreneurial journey, and my goal is now to help others in their quest to scale purpose-filled, impactful companies and helping them do that with less drama, more money, and more growth. That's really why I'm here.
Awesome. And I don't really know a lot of entrepreneurs who don't want that. I know people that are building businesses that don't want that freedom, that growth opportunity. I mean, they go in. I mean, I'm assuming people build businesses not to have them fail. So
Right.
I think there's an opportunity for people. They go and they build a dream, something they've been dreaming about for a long time. They build it because of what the opportunity is for them in the future, them and their families, and the livelihood, the impact they can make, or whatever that thing is the reason why they're building this company in the first place. And
Sure.
that's cool. Like that you get to play a role in that for them is, I'm sure, very fulfilling for you personally.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and not easy, not for everybody, but for those people that want to scale impact and purpose and profit, it's a great methodology to help you do that.
Herb, thanks for sharing. You've given us you've given me, and I know if you've given me, you've given to others really practical insights. I've got a page full of notes of like everything you've dropped on here. I would encourage everybody to go take those assessments. They're free. Yeah. Free for people to take them, and check out your website, other opportunities that they have to possibly engage with you. Where else can they go to connect with you?
Simplest thing is aspiregrowthadvisors.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Either one of them work.
Okay, easy enough. Yeah, I see you've got a healthy following on LinkedIn, and you provide a wealth of content on there. So thanks for doing that, sharing your knowledge with the world, and I wish you good luck and everything you're doing. And thanks for again sharing your wisdom with us.
Happy to be here, and a happy 2024 to you and all your listeners.
Was anybody else taken back by that percentage of 0.5% scale to $10 million? Doesn't it seem to you like there's a lot more companies out there that are bigger than $10 million? I guess not. And it's that little slap of reality that is interesting and what holds us back. And those are the 4 things that they focus on. Those are the 4 things that they feel that Herb feels holds us back, and people that teach the same system. People, do we get bogged down with the way we do things and who we are? Do we get bogged down with trying to be inside the business all the time? I know I coach a lot of leaders that feel like they are too ingrained in the details, or they don't want to let loose of the details or the client-facing stuff, or whatever it is that they're doing, because they feel they do it great, or they feel they just love doing it and they don't want to not do it. So totally get that. People, strategy, the go-to-market strategy, execution. How do we scale this thing? How do we execute on it so it is scalable? And then cash flow. Growth sucks cash. And so if we can think about that in the process of scaling our companies and how we do that, that's going to be very powerful. And I love this, these 7 levers: price, cost of goods, volume, overhead, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and inventory. If we can think about those things, just one of them, and I love that idea because it creates focus. Just one of those things can help transform who we are, what we do in our businesses. And I'm taking that to heart. I'm going to, my action is over the next little period, especially at the beginning of this year, is to think about what action can I take in one of those areas to help my business grow and scale. And that's something I'm going to take on myself. And finally, this quote: it's not magic, it's awareness. It doesn't have to be this daunting thing that we look at as like, oh gosh, I don't, it's like, how did you figure that out? It seems so magical and it seems like it just poof out. It's not. It's the work of personal awareness and self-awareness that allows us to understand what's holding us back from scaling and doing the things we want to do as organizations and as leaders. Thank you, Herb, for being on the show. And I encourage all of you to go take those assessments on his website. They're free. Take them and get a little bit of knowledge into what you can do to empower yourself and the people you lead. If you want to find out more information about me or check out the show notes where there's going to be more information and links to the things referenced in this episode, visit SkotWaldron.com. And lastly, I'm asking for a little bit of love, just a little bit. So please take a moment, follow, rate the show. The algorithms like that. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, stay unlocked.